Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Raw Daddy Hour, hosted by yours truly, Raw Daddy himself. Grandma, I appreciate you. Let me introduce you guys to my guests. To my left, we have Miss Tsion, the Ethiopian that doesn't like to run. And to my far left, we have Shad, the Drip God. What's going on, family? How y'all doing?
We good.
Yeah, see how fast karma works? Get you back, Tsion. It's all love. Today, we are going to be talking about victim culture. Who hurt you? Why does everybody feel the need to be offended by everything? Shad, I'm gonna kick it to you first.
Damn.
When you hear the term victim culture, and when you kind of look at society and how people act right now, how do you interpret that? Like, what does that mean to you? What do you see?
I mean, you kind of said it in the intro. I see just a lot of people who are easily offended by things that I feel like could just roll off the shoulder pretty easily. I'm somebody who, again, I don't really try to read too much into what people say or do. I feel like the space that we're in nowadays with the victim culture, but then also you have like the clout chasing culture. I feel like a lot of people do things just to get a reaction. So, I mean, if you feed into it, you're going to be running around blaming people for things that, again, don't have any impact on your life in the long run. So, yeah.
Tsion, I would pose the same question to you.
I feel like social media gives people so much power that like they want to run with it, and that's why people want to play victim, because if you play victim, you get attention from others. And I feel like social media, like he said, clout chasing gives them that power to just be a victim. Like instead of moving on, they would rather hold on to it and just prolong the whole thing. And I feel like that's what the problem is.
Yeah, a part of me feels like a lot of it is lack of accountability, right? People's unwillingness to look at themselves and understand that, well, we'll take a look inward and think about why is everything affecting me the way that it is. You know, I feel like if I'm secure within myself and someone makes a broad statement that is not directed at me, I'm not going to take it personally. I'm not going to then twist it, internalize it, and make it about me.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of the pick-me culture, the, like you said, the clout chasing culture, and just like people's inability to just, okay, that literally had nothing to do with me. This person doesn't even know me. So how could they be directly trying to offend me? You feel me? So that's kind of where I think it comes from, is just people not being too sure of themselves and not really taking the time to, you know, take a step back and be like, okay, this really has nothing to do with me.
And then the other thing too, you made a good point. It's like, even if it does in some way apply to you, you don't know the person who said it, so why care? Why get yourself all bent out of shape over, you don't know this person, you're probably never going to interact with them. So what's the point in like harping over it or something like that? If it's someone who you directly have like direct contact with, I get it. Like if it applies to you and you want to address it, by all means do your thing. But if it's somebody who you don't even know and are never going to see, to me, I just feel like, what's the point? I feel like it's a waste of energy.
No, I agree.
Yeah, it's also like he said, like it has a lot to do with people being insecure with themselves, and like instead of working on themselves and being secure within themselves, they run into, you know, like they would rather just be the victim and stay the victim because that gives them the power, that gives them that attention that they need. So people would just hold on to the hurt.
Do you feel like, because I know we talked about the clout chasing part, do you guys feel like it's more monetizable to be a victim?
I feel like it's a very fine line. Like, I feel like some people are cool with the gamble because like you can put yourself out there as a victim and it work in your favor and you get all that attention and you get the eyes on you. But then it could backfire too, where it's like you're trying to make something out of something that the greater public doesn't really deem as a big deal, and then you look like somebody who's just like complaining and calling yourself a victim when you're not really a victim. So I think it, from a monetary standpoint, there are people, like I said, who are really down to gamble and like, okay, I see that, let me hop on that, let me hop on that, let me hop on that. And then they're trying to build their following for whatever it is that they plan to do with being labeled as a victim. I don't know how you can monetize being a victim. Like, get a talk show maybe? I don't know.
No, I've seen a lot of like lawsuits come from people
Oh, you're
feeling,
talking. Oh,
you know
okay.
what I mean? Like people, you know, kind of twisting situations to make something more malicious than it was intended to be, especially
Interesting.
like in the workplace. Like I've seen a lot of those instances, or like, you know, we have a sue happy culture now too, where it's like, all right, somebody got up in my face a little too much, I'm gonna sue them for assault. You know
You
what
can
I mean?
sue people for anything now. Anything. It's just possible to do it. And you get it. You get what you're looking for. So it's so easy to be a victim this days and era, and I don't know how we can fix that, honestly
Especially
speaking.
if you're coming after someone who has more to lose, like a company. Like let's say you're a minority, or maybe let's say you're a minority, and you can put a company in a position where they would rather settle, right? They would rather not go public with something, or rather not have something taint their image. So they're like, you know what, we'll just settle out of it. We'll just pay. You know, we'll just give you this, we'll just give you that. So then you start to find people hunting for situations, trying to put themselves in scenarios where they can make it seem as though they were victimized. They might not have been victimized, but make it seem as though they're victimized. So I think there's a little bit of orchestrating or manipulating that system as well.
Can you give me like an example of one of those situations? I'm trying to wrap. I get what you're saying, but I'm trying to wrap my head around what that looks like, because if you're speaking to a situation that a judge is deeming like the person is a victim, I'll be interested to kind of hear a situation where you feel like they.
Well, it's
like,
not always. That's not always even a judge. Some of these companies will just settle a lot of stuff before it even goes to court.
or even like from a legal standpoint.
Yeah, even from a legal standpoint, and even from a societal standpoint. Like I remember when the Me Too movement first really popped off, right?
Okay.
And there was a lot of things talked about in the workplace about like male bosses with female employees, and so they did a study, and they were talking about how since that came out, female employees were less likely to have one-on-one meetings with their male bosses, right? And a lot of the men had came out and said, they were like, because I don't want to get put in a scenario where someone could take something incorrectly and then use that against me. And now there's no proof because it was just us two, right? So they started to kind of implement group meetings, right? So now we do all of our meetings in groups. And that subculture of women felt very victimized, disrespected, not fairly treated, because they were no longer able to have those one-on-one scenarios. When in reality, there were quite a few cases where men were falsely accused, but there was no proof. They couldn't prove it. So when it was your word against mine, they just had to let it fly. They just had to settle it out. So that was one example I can remember from recent history. Tsion, you about to say something?
That's a bit like a more wider. That's more complicated. Like I hate the fact that people use other people's pain for their gain. Like let's say my friend was a victim of that, right? Like somebody abused her at work, they did their thing, and then someone sees that as a way and they falsely accuse somebody else. I hate that. That's the worst shit you can do to people, because the victims, like those people take the power away from the others that are hurting, and that's not okay. But you can't use that scenario though. That's kind of sensitive scenario to use in this instance.
Sensitive is real though. At the end, that's as real as it gets, because I do feel like I do feel like what the culture does is it does take the power out of people who are truly victimized by things, because everyone can't be offended by everything.
Everybody's offended by everything these days. Anything
You
you
know
say.
what I mean? And like everyone's not a victim of everything. So at the end of the day, if those who are not truly being victimized are taking credit for things that are not truly happening to them, then it is taking the power away from those who are a part of those more sensitive situations. And they do become less sensitive and more broad. And that to me is not fair. So has there ever been a time, Shad, I'll go to you first, that you had to kind of check yourself where you felt offended by something and you were like, hold on, let me take a step back and really kind of look at why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling?
I could say yeah. I think in sometimes like when I think back, maybe in some business dealings like early on, like certain decisions or whatever the case may be that a client may have made or someone may have made, where I kind of took it personal and just really like in that situation was like a time where I had to really adopt that as just business mindset, and then really kind of like check some things with me and like just really adjust how I think, how I approach certain situations, and then also to just when to just be like, okay, just let something go and just focus that energy that I could put into dwelling on that situation and put it into progressing in another area. Like I'm really big on that. Just I feel like we waste so much time complaining and crying over things that are not valid, and then sometimes they might be valid, but it's like, why waste all that energy on that when you could just like use that as fuel to do something that is going to either solve that problem or just like continue to elevate you. That's just how I look at it. Yeah.
Tsion, has there ever been a time?
I would say I'm the opposite. I look at things differently, and then like I remember at a workplace, they did something like that was racist, but I didn't see it from that point of view. And like I was explaining it to my coworkers, and like I'm telling them what happened, and they were like, that's racist. Like, you need to go to HR. And I'm like, no, it really? And then they started telling me how it is actually not fair and why it's actually racist. And I'm like, okay, well, you have a point. And I feel like it has a lot to do with not growing up in that environment and not experiencing not really experiencing racism to that point. And like just I came here and I'm learning as I go every day what is racism and what is racist, what is not, from my experience. So
damn,
wow.
I actually didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm.
That like everything, the whole that's crazy that's like a part of American culture, like that you have to learn the signs of actual. That's crazy.
Yeah, I like the more I experienced it, the more like I started reading into it. I started learning more of the American culture for me to understand, like, oh, this is actually not okay. This is not supposed to happen. This is not how I'm looking at it. It's actually, this way. So it's really different. It's a whole culture shock.
Yeah. I could say for myself, I definitely used to have like secondhand, what would you call it? Like secondhand, I know like secondhand embarrassment is a thing, but like secondhand victimization, like I used to feel for other people. Like, I'm such an empath, and I used to be like, hold on, motherfucker, like you talking about all of us. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's all of us. But at some point I had to like really sit back and realize like, bro, you're complaining more than you're like moving towards solutions.
That's
like you can't let this like stop your life. Like I've literally seen people stop what they're doing, their whole forward momentum, to attack some cause or some statement or some video that they saw, and it had nothing to do with them at all, and it doesn't affect anyone's life. That's the even crazier part to me. So like you said, some things can be offensive, right? But they don't affect anything, right? They don't affect anything to the point where you don't have to give it time. It's kind of like a little ember. If you fan it, that's just going to turn into a full fire. So yeah, now we have a problem. But before, this was just something little. Somebody made a little statement, they apologized for it, let it go. Like the whole thing about pulling up people's tweets from 30 years ago, and you offended by something somebody said when they're 14. Fam, how does that work? And the other piece to it as well is not allowing people the chance to even grow from whatever offensive statement they may have made.
That's what I don't like. What I don't like right now, what we have going on is like people can never come back from what they say or what they did. Like we don't accept apology, we don't accept growth. Why not? Like, isn't that part of life though? Like, aren't we supposed to learn from whatever mistake we make and, you know, grow from it? Like he said, elevate and just grow and progress from it. But that's not possible. I think it's social media though.
You think it's just social media though?
Social media, people don't got nothing to do. They just sit there and like it gives them power because you don't have to see the person, right? You don't have to see the person face to face. You just write and text or, you know, tweet or comment on whatever it is that they're doing.
I have done this before. I have done this before. I might watch something controversial, maybe something like The Shade Room or something. And I didn't feel any type of way about the video, right? I just kind of watched it because, you know, it had like a lot of views or something. But then I'll go in the comments and people will start like giving their opinions and like breaking it down. I'm like,
and you start seeing it, yeah.
Hold on, man. Like, hold on. Did he really mean it that way? You know what I'm saying? Like, was he really trying to say? And then I have to get out of there. I'm like, whoa. What are you doing, bro? Like, you're going down that rabbit hole. But not everybody has the wherewithal to kind of pull back. You know what I mean? And the piece about not allowing people to grow is that's hypocritical, in my opinion, because everybody always says, "Oh, the old me is dead, the new me is here.
2021 my year."
Yeah, exactly. This is my year now. No, what if we kept looking at you like 2017, Shad? What if we never let you outgrow 2017, Shad? I don't like. I've said it before on this podcast. My favorite line out of any song is, "Why do I still have to mean everything I ever said? Everything I ever said does not define me." Right? Your actions do. And I feel like we don't let people grow from that, right? Even if someone does offend you, right? Like, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head except for Kanye. I don't know why Kanye always be like the first person I think of with the controversial stuff. But like, if that man was to grow from the things that he may have once supported or may have once did, why not let that, you know what I'm saying? Why not let that man be great? Because like I said, I feel like it's more profitable to keep someone in that bubble, especially media-wise.
Oh yeah,
to have stories to report on, to have things to talk about. It's so much easier to talk about negative things.
I mean, things are always taken out of context when you see it on social media or media, like in general. It's always, if something is controversial, if you actually go watch something, you'd be like, okay, wait, but the person is like, the first thing you see is like this person say, the Shade Room especially, they'll just have like a snippet of like a whole video of what one person said, and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they said this. I want to go watch the video. And you watch the video and you're like, wait, but the person was trying to make a point about this. That's why they say that. Like, so more of like taking things out of context and running with it instead of actually like acknowledging the whole truth is what the problem is as well.
That's another big part, context. We've talked about this before. A lot of people, they will see that snippet or they won't even watch the whole snippet. You could post. That's why I started to shorten up the snippets of the Raw Daddy Hour to 30 seconds, because you can post a minute snippet and people watch 10 seconds and judge you. Then you're one of the few that'll go and watch the whole interview or whole video clip to even find the context of which this statement came from. Yeah. That alone could take down the amount of offensive gestures that we feel towards a certain subject just by trying to understand where another person is coming from. Like that's crazy to me right there. Like I really could never understand how people can just take a little piece of what you're saying and use that as gospel. And I'll even use the app Clubhouse. You know, I'm a big advocate of Clubhouse. I'm always on Clubhouse. And I do jump in some rooms sometimes with like 40, 50 people on the stage. And it'll, you know, kind of like how my room when I moderate it, you go down the line, everybody gets to say their piece on the topic. And sometimes, well, a lot of times, somebody will get 3 words out. Everyone just erupts. And in my mind, I'm just like, why didn't y'all let them finish? Maybe they were going somewhere with that. Maybe it would have ended just as offensively as the first 3 words, but you don't know because you never let them finish their statement. It's almost like people are fishing for that, like we were saying, buzzword, or like that little thing that's just like, oh yeah, you're going to tick me off soon. And as soon as you do, I'm not going to let you finish this statement. I'm just going to go in on your ass.
Yeah. Everybody's waiting to do that. Like I was on a group that my friend invited me on, I think last week. It was like something about Christian marriage, and it was something like that. I don't know why I was in it or why she invited me.
Maybe she's trying to say something.
I was like,
Underlying message.
okay, get it, girl. So like this girl was talking about, I don't know, it was something about finance, and like she wants to, save this much 70% of her income for their future, and they can use her husband's or something like that. When I tell you, before she could even finish the sentence, like she did not even say it out loud, they just ganged up on her. And I'm like, wait, why aren't we listening to the point she's trying to make? And she's like, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. They wouldn't. So this girl has to stop them and say, I think what she's trying to say is this and this and this. Maybe if you guys let her finish it, she'll make her point and you will understand and go from there. And I'm like, I gotta go.
That would be my exit from a room too. When they get to doing that, I'm like, yo, I gotta get up out of here.
I gotta go.
My ears
Because
hurt.
it's like what we're gonna keep doing is like she's gonna say something that's gonna be taken out of context. Now that person is gonna be a victim because, oh yeah, everybody ganged up on me about this. So like that's how it starts. Like being a victim really starts from there.
So Shad, what are your thoughts on people's, I would say this is an ability because I think it's a skill to be able to insert themselves into any situation to fish for that buzzword or for that victimization or for that insult to what they would deem as an insult to them. How do you feel about people's ability to do that and how that kind of perpetuates this cycle?
I mean, like you said, it's a skill. It's a skill. It takes a certain, like you could get into like the psychology of that, right? Like it really takes just a certain type of individual to be able to hear something or see something and then manipulate it into a way where it applies not only to them but a broader scope of people. I feel like, and again, going back to what I keep saying, I feel like that person, if they took that skill and applied it to something else, like bro, like you could be doing so much more, but you're, for whatever reason, again, it's this cloudy, just like I want all eyes on me type of thing. I want the quick gratification of everybody agreeing with me. You kind of stated when we talked last night about, I'm not on Clubhouse or anything like that, but you talked about how you could have someone who is hosting a room and someone could come in with a great idea or a great perspective on something, but they're starting to shoot that down because they didn't come up with the idea. So I feel like, again, like when it comes to like people who have that skill of being able to, hear something, see something, sit down, type of response or come up with a blog post, like you have an amazing skill to be able to analyze something, and like your critical thinking skills are actually pretty good, but you just need to refocus that and package it in a different way that it's just a bit more positive. Yeah. And it's going to uplift people instead of like causing chaos and madness. Like, and again, I feel like it's this society. Like I feel like the clickbaity kind of like shade roomish, if that's even a word, kind of like stories is what everybody kind of flocks to. Everybody wants to gossip, the tea, and all this other bullshit. And it's annoying because like I feel like we have so many problems in society, in the Black community, that if we just try to kind of shift our mindset in the way that we approach things, I feel like we could be, we need to be more solutions oriented when it comes to just like dealing with a lot of issues and problems. And I feel like at this moment we're not.
No, that's big facts, bro. And especially the solution piece, because whenever people, and you hit on it, write a whole blog post, you know what I'm saying, about something that you felt was left. And nowhere in that blog post do we get to how we correct or rectify the situation. It's just 2 pages of complaints, 2 pages of why this person was wrong. But here's the even crazier part to me. The fact that someone does a job, right? Let's say like a reporter, right? They are tasked with researching a topic, figuring out what is worth talking about in that specific topic, condensing that into a format, whatever. It could be a 30-minute video, right? Could be a 30-second video. And then they are giving you this product. And then in 10 seconds, you are able to discern whether or not this person's information was credible. I think that's crazy. You didn't take any, so the amount of time that they took to make sure that this was good information and solid information, and even if it's an opinion, a sound opinion, I feel like I really can't tell someone that their opinion is wrong if it's like a sound opinion. If they've put the research into it and this is something that they believe, cool. I don't feel like it's right to then come with like this knee-jerk reaction, because there are a lot of people who get off on like riling up a congregation of people, right? You see that a lot on Clubhouse too, like that. It's really kind of like showing human dynamics, because like you said, it's kind of even worse. And I don't mean worse in a bad way, but it's kind of worse than like the comment section, because it's instant. Yeah. And you can hear people's, like you can hear the passion behind what they're talking about. You can hear, the anger or the sadness or the happiness. Like you can hear the emotion. And it's, like I said, it's instant. As soon as I say it, you can immediately get riled up with me. So instead of having to wait for all these comments to come through, it's like, no, we can gang up on you in real time. We can gang up on you right now. And what that does is it breeds this culture of like, we're not even thinking, because there's no way you're thinking that fast. You just heard all these voices, and now you coming in with your voice too, and now it's like, damn, homegirl, like you said, homegirl can't even speak. Yeah. She can't even, get out the point that she was made to make. This was supposed to be a space for her to make a point, but really, if she didn't say what y'all agreed with, and honestly, that's a lose-lose too, because just because she said what the person to the left disagreed with and they attacked her, if she would have formed it a different way, person on the right probably would have attacked her. So either way, she was going to get ganged up on, because she didn't come in with the consensus opinion. So that part is crazy to me. Like the fact that people can't critically think, we go back to this shit all the time. The fact that people can't just wait, listen to understand.
We don't listen to understand. Like I sometimes don't listen to understand. That's not the point, right?
Self-reflection is good. Self-reflection is a very good thing.
But we usually as human don't listen to understand. We just listen to make a point. Like, I want to make a point. I know you're making a point, but your point is not what I'm thinking about. It's the point that I want to make. So until I make the point I want to make, like, I don't want to listen to what you have to say. I can listen, but I won't hear it. Like, it just goes through the other ear. That's the issue that we have with society.
And that's a huge problem, because if you're not taking in the information, then now your opinion is stupid. Now you don't have any legs to stand on with the case that you just made for why something is wrong. Like, I truly believe that unless something is like specifically directed at you, like 8 times out of 10, like, I don't understand why you're offended.
Bro, that's what I mean?
Like,
I led with, like,
8 times out of 10, it's like,
yo,
you wanted to be offended. And I know that might be a little harsh, but like, I feel like you wanted me, like, you came into this like, nah, this month, like, I'm gonna get him, and he's gonna say something, and I'm just gonna, you know what I mean? It's kind of like in relationships when you get into arguments and like no one's really listening to the other person, so it's just like, and it's like, who can be the loudest, and no matter what you say, it's going to trigger me. And, everyone's got their triggers now and traumas and all of this stuff. And it's like,
I feel like he just downplayed that. And
no, I'm not downplaying it. But at the same time, like, you can't bring that into every conversation.
No, I mean, I feel like that's happening a lot though. Like, I'm glad like people are getting in touch with their feeling, with their traumas, and they're fixing it. They know what triggers them. But everything cannot be a trigger, though.
Are they really fixing it, though?
But that's what I'm saying. It's not fixing it, because you're just bringing it up every minute.
That's
But that's my trauma. You're triggering it, so I can't.
So let me rage and get mad and just like, you're like, where's the work? Like, where's the work in like helping this get better? I'm not saying that everyone needs to or is going to resolve their traumas, but like, you hear a trigger word and you rage, and you hear a trigger word and you rage, and you hear a trigger word and you rage. When does that rage ever kind of dissipate? Where's the work that helps you be able to better manage your emotions when you hear a trigger word? Because if it's me, I want to get to a point where the trigger word don't even bother me. like you said, if
Because
it's not
you heal it.
But I
right?
feel like we don't really, like you said, like people
Don't heal. Like they don't work on the healing part. They will figure out what the trauma is. They know what what's triggering them. Like, which I'm glad like this generation is talking about therapy, going to therapy, doing the work. But then again, what triggers you, if you're not working on what triggers you and what the trauma is, to the point where like when whatever that happens does not trigger you, it cannot just be a trigger for the rest of your life.
just
Oh,
gonna
you
be
triggered
looking
me. I'm
like
gonna
this for the trigger, like.
And the
it's
other
like
part
you
about
look for it.
too-
It's where
there
it's like,
is.
oh, it
Let me
is.
go
It's
over
coming.
there. Let me go over there.
Bro,
There
and
it
that is
is.
literally how it is.
That's
though.
how it
It's like a
is.
little fire in all the cavemen.
Yeah.
Like we wait for it. Like, oh yeah, that's a trigger.
Facts.
So I'm gonna go with it.
And I
So
don't, and once again, like I don't want people to feel like we are shitting on people's
Absolutely
traumas.
No,
and
not.
triggers.
Absolutely not.
But the onus is on you to work on that, not a stranger to know what your trigger is. If a stranger who you're talking to, or not even talking to, or just listening to, right? Because 9 times out of 10, this is a post, does not know your specific trigger, how can they be pointing that at you? And I feel like the onus is on you to work on that so that when you hear it, you don't rage out. Like, is that not wild? Like, how you gonna rage on me? I didn't even know you had a trigger, fam. I'm simply making a statement and you hear this one word and you go nuts on me. And I get it. And that's why I say 8 times out of 10, I get it if this is someone you've had this conversation with and they use it on you to trigger you. I get that. But in casual conversation or in watching something, that was curated for a broad audience, and then you internalize it because you heard one thing, and no, I put that onus on you. I put that on you to fix. I put that on you to resolve, because if you're coming into every situation that way, then you don't need to be in open discussions, or you don't need to be in scenarios where you could be, inflamed or set off, so to speak. I put that on you. I don't put that on those who are curating the comments. I mean, the content, because then what are we supposed to just stare at the camera? There's a trigger for everything, so we're just supposed to not talk? I feel like that's where we're getting. Like this one dude, oh my goodness. I was in a room and this man really was like nitpicking the title. He's like, well, if you don't want, this, and this, then maybe you should change words like the same or like da-da-da. And in that case, I agreed with the room, like kind of exploding on him, because they were like, bro, you're taking it so far. You're getting into semantics about an open discussion topic, about a room you chose to come into. This was not forced upon you. And that's the other piece, like you mentioned. We're seeking these things. We see that buzz title, we see that, and it's gonna fuck with you. You know it is. If I enter that natural hair room that I'm gonna get triggered. I know if I enter that beard chat and my shit don't connect and they get to talking about me, I know
all the women be like,
bro,
his beard don't connect, he ain't no real man.
I know I am. Why would I go in there? I'm gonna keep my patchy beard to the side, work on my self-confidence, and I'll go in when I can. Once I'm ready. But the moment they get to talking about patchy beards, I'm gonna be hurt.
Word.
I should not enter that space.
Word.
In that case, that space is not for me. Come into these spaces secure, fam. And platforms like Clubhouse are only going to get bigger. They're only going to get bigger. And if you're getting triggered in real time because someone who's in Ireland who doesn't know you is talking about their experience, and it triggers you to the point where you have to interrupt them via like a chat room and like try to belittle them, nah, fam. I would never agree with that, and I don't agree with people doing that. Tsion, my question to you. What do you feel like people can do to get better at this? And I'm not talking about those who are like on their high horse that like to rile people up. I'm talking about the more sheepish type of people that get kind of sucked into these things. What are some things that they could do to like work on themselves to not be so triggered?
I feel like it, like you said at first, it has a lot to do with being secure within yourself. Like if you're comfortable with who you are, whatever people say on social media or on anything, it shouldn't affect you if it's not about you. If it's not directed to you, it shouldn't affect you. You should just be like, well, whatever. That's what it is. That's how you feel. Like it should not trigger you. You have to work on that, on your trauma, on your whatever it is that's triggering you, that makes you go crazy on people. If you work on it and if you're comfortable with yourself, if you're secure enough with yourself, it shouldn't affect you by any means possible. Or you can just, even if it does trigger you, you can work on, okay, how can I be better? How can I not react to these things that are coming at me that way? Even if it's directed to you. I feel like that's what people need to work on, including me.
Shad.
I think when we're dealing with trauma, and again, trauma being like something that's negatively impacting you physically or emotionally, I think doing the self work and being more solutions oriented, solutions based, like we're big on that. Like and this is an example. There are countless shoots where we've gone into and something negative happens on set, throughout the course of the production, after the production. Instead of, now I'm not going to say that we don't talk about the negative thing, the trauma that happened, but we don't harp on it. We talk about it, and then what we do is this is something we always do afterwards. We talk about, hey, what is it that we could have done better to avoid that problem happening, or to avoid it happening in the future? So I think when we constantly do that work, we get better at being able to navigate certain relationships or certain things that we know negatively impact us. So we don't have that stress all the time. We're not worried when we go into a certain client or have to deal with a certain client or deal with a certain situation. Like we're not fuming getting ready to deal with that. We know, okay, this is what we have to do in order to, deal with that situation, or even trying to understand like what it is that the person is kind of like talking about or like trying to do. I think, again, we do a good job at really kind of giving people grace and kind of like their ideas, their thoughts. And this is not even like video production. This is just in general. Like we have just random conversations as well. Just trying to understand like people's thought process, giving them grace, and understand that everything isn't so personal. Everything isn't so personal. I feel like if you're able to do that, work on yourself and understand like people are speaking from their own personal experiences. Shit, they might even have their own traumas that they're trying to deal with, and that's how they're communicating. I feel like if you're able to navigate those two things, you'll be in a better space to just let shit roll off your shoulders and just focus on you, focus on getting better and uplifting people, and not just throwing gasoline on fires.
My advice would be 99% of the time people not thinking about you. And nobody's thinking about you, bro. Like even when you think like, oh, is that story about me? Is that a subliminal? Like, are they shooting that at me? Probably not. You're not as important as you think. Somebody told me that recently when I said something about, I was too busy to do something. They're like, you're not that important. If it's something that you want, you make time for it. It wasn't you. It was a more profound individual. They're like, you're not that important. And people are not always thinking about you. You're not fresh on everyone's mind, outside of them seeing you face to face. So that means 99% of the time, it's a you thing. It's a me thing, right? And I love what you touched on about one of the things that we do. Yes, clients can be very difficult. There have been countless times when we have almost exploded, you know what I mean? And because of things that have gone on set. But the one question that I love that we ask ourselves is, what could we have done better to manage the situation? Even if we are 100% in the right, I still like to ask the question, what could I have done better? How could I have maybe communicated something better, communicated a boundary, communicated, how we wanted something to get done, avoided certain tensions, or made sure that certain relationships on set were better managed? What things could I do in the future? Because it doesn't get easier. That's the thing about life. It doesn't get easier. You don't go through something and then, all right, you check that off. That's the last thing you'll go through it. No, nothing gets easier in life. So I do think asking yourself the question, even, like I said, even when you're 100% in the right, and this goes for anything, even extremely traumatic events, because quiet as it's kept, we have a lot of control over what happens to us in our life. Pretty much all of it. I believe that life is choices. And if you can ask yourself why you made certain choices that put you in certain predicaments, you can at least have some foresight into what that next time you're in a situation like that will look like and what you can do to prevent certain things. Case in point, working on your triggers. If you know that going into that certain room, the last time you did it, don't beat yourself up about it. You did it. You ganged up on a motherfucker. You got triggered. You lost your shit. All right, back up. What could I have done better? Maybe I didn't need to get on stage my first time in the room if I felt like this is a conversation that would trigger me. It's okay if you blow up and your phone is on mute and you know what I'm saying, you're not really going at everybody. I've done that. I've gone in rooms where I knew if I get on stage, I'll probably say something that'll go left, and I just listen. First time in, you just go listen. That's something you could have did, right? Or you could have fixed yourself a little bit more before you took that step to go and be around people that you know are going to be using these buzzwords. And a lot of these rooms, it's inevitable. Everyone telling their experience, it's inevitable. So I feel like when you look at it that way, what could I have done better in my situations? And then once you do that, it doesn't stop there. You have to keep that, right? One thing that we do, once we ask ourselves that question, we make that adjustment, now that's the standard. Everything moving forward goes this way, right? We don't revert back to who we were when we made that same mistake, because now you make it a second time, that's an even more clear indicator that it's you. Make the mistake or have the tension, have the trigger, whatever. Take a step back, look at, okay, where was I wrong? Where was I right? Right? What things did I do well? What things did I do not so well? Move forward from there.
I want to say one thing before.
Go ahead, brother.
Can we say 90% of traumatic situations, we have control over? Because I do think there are some situations that are traumatic that you have zero.
You're right.
And I think you know where yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, some stuff you don't have control over.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go 90%.
90%.
I'm with that. 90%? She's looking like,
you
looking like 65. She's looking like 65.
It's different for women. I can't say 90%.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's going to do it for another episode of the Raw Daddy Hour. I want to thank everybody for coming through, sitting through this with y'all. Grandma, we love you, girl. I want to thank my guests, the lovely Tsion, Drip God. He's always in attendance. And we out of here.